Today I would like to invite you to listen to the Dhammapada of the Buddha Sakyamuni, the 199th verses from the Buddhist scriptures on the YouTube channel Thien Thai in the USA. Happily do we live without yearning for sensual pleasures amongst those who yearn for them. Amidst those who yearn for them we dwell without yearning. Dear disciples and all beloved listeners, this verse is a gentle reminder that true happiness does not arise from possessing many things. It does not come from satisfying every desire. It does not come from following every feeling that appears in the mind. The Buddha teaches us a path of inner freedom, a path where the heart is no longer controlled by craving, a path where peace can remain present even when the world around us is filled with attachment and longing. In this human life, every being wishes to find happiness. Every person searches for comfort, security, love, recognition, and fulfillment. Because of this search, many people spend their entire lives running after external conditions. They believe that when they gain more wealth, they will become peaceful. They believe that when they receive more praise, they will become satisfied. They believe that when their wishes are fulfilled, they will finally rest. But the wisdom of the Buddha reveals another truth. The more we chase after desire without understanding desire, the more the mind becomes restless. The more we hold tightly to things that are changing, the more suffering we experience when those things change. The world can provide temporary happiness, but it cannot provide lasting peace. Only a mind that understands the nature of attachment can discover a happiness that does not depend on outside circumstances. The 199th verse speaks about living happily among those who are full of yearning. This does not mean that we reject the world. It does not mean that we hate people who enjoy material things. The Buddha never taught us to judge others. The teaching is not about separating ourselves from society. The teaching is about transforming our own mind. A person who has wisdom may live among people who desire many things, yet the heart remains calm. A person who has practiced mindfulness may see attractive things, hear pleasant sounds, and experience comfortable conditions. Yet the mind does not become a servant of those experiences. This person understands that all things arise and pass away. This person enjoys life with awareness, but does not become trapped by enjoyment. The Buddha teaches us that the greatest victory is not conquering others. The greatest victory is conquering the restless mind within ourselves. When greed appears, we recognize greed. When attachment appears, we recognize attachment. When craving appears, we recognize craving. Through awareness, the mind slowly becomes free. The happiness described in this verse is not a happiness that depends on having everything we want. It is a happiness that comes from needing less. It is the happiness of a heart that is content. It is the happiness of someone who can appreciate the present moment without demanding that the present moment become something different. There is a deep peace in letting go. When we release the endless desire to possess, the mind becomes lighter. When we release the need to compare ourselves with others, the heart becomes peaceful. When we release the habit of chasing after temporary pleasures, we discover the quiet joy that has always been within. The Buddha's life itself is an example of this teaching. Before attaining enlightenment, Prince SIDDHARTHA lived in great comfort. He had wealth, beauty, power, and all forms of worldly pleasure available to him. Yet he saw that these conditions could not remove the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. He understood that external happiness could never bring complete freedom. Because of compassion for all beings, he left behind the palace and began the search for the truth. He did not leave because he hated life. He left because he loved life deeply. He wanted to discover the path that would lead all beings away from suffering. After years of practice, the Buddha realized the nature of the mind. He discovered that suffering comes from ignorance and attachment. When the mind clings, suffering follows. When the mind releases, peace appears. This realization became the foundation of his teaching. The 199th verse invites us to look deeply into our own hearts. We should ask ourselves, what truly makes me peaceful? What truly creates suffering in my life? Am I controlled by my desires? Or am I able to observe my desires with wisdom? Many people believe freedom means being able to do whatever they want. But the Buddha shows us a deeper understanding. If we are controlled by anger, are we free? If we are controlled by greed, are we free? If we cannot find peace without receiving approval from others, are we truly free? Real freedom is when the mind is no longer controlled by conditions. Real freedom is when kindness remains even when others are unkind. Real freedom is when patience remains even when difficulties appear. Real freedom is when happiness can arise from a peaceful heart. The story connected with this verse comes from the life of the Buddha and the monks who followed his path. At one time, there was a monk named Venerable Mahakassapa. He was one of the great disciples of the Buddha, known for his deep practice, simplicity, and contentment. Before becoming a monk, he was born into a wealthy family. He had access to comfort and luxury, but his heart was not satisfied by worldly pleasures. He understood that possessions could not provide permanent peace. Although he had the opportunity to enjoy a life of wealth, he saw the uncertainty of all things. He saw that youth disappears, beauty changes, possessions are lost, and life itself is temporary. With a sincere heart, he renounced his wealth and followed the Buddha's path. He practiced diligently and lived a very simple life. He was content with little. He accepted whatever food was offered. He wore simple robes. He lived without seeking comfort or praise. Some people wondered why a person who once had great wealth would choose such a simple life. They could not understand the happiness of a person who no longer depended on external things. But Venerable Mahakassapa experienced a happiness that ordinary people could not see. His joy came from a peaceful mind. His happiness came from freedom from attachment. He was surrounded by people who searched for wealth, status, and pleasure, yet he remained without craving. The Buddha praised his practice because he demonstrated the meaning of living happily without yearning. He showed that a person does not need many possessions to be joyful. A person does not need the approval of the world to have dignity. A person does not need endless pleasure to experience peace. The life of Venerable Mahakassapa teaches us that true richness is not measured by what we own. True richness is measured by the quality of our heart. A person with compassion, wisdom, and a peaceful mind possesses a treasure that cannot be destroyed. When we look at our own lives, we may find many forms of desire. We may desire success, recognition, comfort, or happiness from others. These desires are natural experiences of human beings. The Buddha does not ask us to hate ourselves for having desires. Instead, he invites us to understand them. When desire appears, we can observe it with kindness. We do not need to immediately follow every desire. We do not need to fight against every desire. We simply understand its nature. A desire appears. It remains for a time. Then it changes and disappears. This is the nature of all experiences. When we understand this clearly, we no longer become prisoners of our thoughts and emotions. The person who practices the Buddha's teaching learns how to live in the middle of the world without being consumed by the world. Like a lotus flower growing from muddy water, the wise person lives among difficulties but remains pure. The lotus does not reject the mud. The lotus uses the mud as a condition to grow. In the same way, we do not need to escape from life in order to practice Dharma. Our family relationships, our work, our challenges, and our daily experiences are all opportunities to cultivate wisdom. When someone praises us, we practice humility. When someone criticizes us, we practice patience. When we receive pleasant conditions, we practice gratitude. When we face unpleasant conditions, we practice acceptance. Every moment becomes a teacher. Every experience becomes a place for awakening. The Buddha's teaching is not far away.